Hi everyone, Michael Rubenfeld here. Recently, I posted a video about Polish satire and how Poland has its own very specific brand of satire, and how I love that about Poland. And I've had some people ask me what the heck I mean, and so I thought I would just sort of expound a little bit on it. So I grew up in Canada, and Canada, let's say we have our own you know, satire. Canada is a very satirical place in general. There's just lots to make fun of. The fact that we're so polite, we're always saying sorry. The way that we say sorry instead of sorry in America. Um, I don't know. There's lots to make fun of. We just do. We make fun of ourselves in Canada. I don't know why, but we like it. Canadians just really like doing that. Um, but it's its own very like specific brand of satire. Whereas, say, like in Poland, there's a completely different version of satire, and I'm going to give you a few examples. And it's not that they're better versions or worse versions of satire. So please don't get defensive. I know you like to get defensive, which is something that is easy to satirize in Poland, Polish defensiveness. And if you don't think that Poles are more defensive than like the average person, then you're wrong. Anyways, the point that I'm trying to make is that there's versions of Polish satire. Some of them are quite delightful. So, for example, Sławosz Uznanski and the eating of pierogi. Now, this is something that happened like a few days ago, but the Polish news was reporting about the fact that he was going to be bringing pierogi into space with him. This was like, I feel like for months, they've been writing about this. And then he finally went and he ate the pierogi, and it's major news, and it's goofy. It's just goofy. And some people are watching and they're going, we know it's goofy. And I'm watching going, well, this is goofy, but I love that it's goofy. Partly because, Poles have so much kind of pride that it runs even into the pierogi, this pierogi. So, it just wouldn't happen. It's like a Canadian first goes to space. Now, we had a Canadian guy go to space, and he did a whole bunch of things. He recorded songs. He did everything that he could. But in Canada, it's like we wouldn't go and do maple syrup in Canada, because it's more people outside of Canada who identify Canada with maple syrup than Canadians themselves. We don't have like a food, the quintessential food. But the fact that like that Polish identity and culture is so important that something as goofy as eating a pierogi in space could make such big news is funny. It's to be made fun of, and I do. Now, on the other scale of things that are satirical are the politics. You know what I'm talking about. Now, of course, the number one sort of satirical figure is Grzegorz Braun. Like, who knows what this guy actually believes in? Like, he seems to be just a showman, like a snake oil salesman. I don't know if you know that terminology, but he seems to, I don't know what his beliefs are, but I think he's sort of found a niche, extremist right-wingers who are angry, and he's sort of playing the role of like angry right-winger, smashing around and saying stupid, racist, homophobic shit all the time. And, of course these people exist all over the world, but the fact that he, was able to get 6% of the presidential vote, and the fact that he's not in jail, or that he's even still in politics, is kind of satirical. He's not even as ridiculous as an evil Shakespeare villain, because he's he's just a clown. He's a buffoon. Really, like, in the world that I live in theater, you wouldn't write a character like this because he's too obviously ridiculous. But the fact that there are as many people who do support him, despite the fact that he does such ridiculous shit, is satirical. What I mean by that is that it feels as if it's not like a real thing that's going on, that a real person is ripping down Ukrainian flags, spraying out Hanukkah candles, and it seems almost cartoonish, absurdist. So this is why Poland feels satirical, like it's trying to make a point about extremism by being extremely absurd in the form of Grzegorz Braun, but in reality, Grzegorz Braun is, he's behaving like real. He's not joking around, or so we think. Who knows what's going on? But and the fact that he's getting votes and people care. Now I know it's still the minority, but 6% is a pretty large minority of people who vote for him. So yeah, and then of course there's Nawrocki and the fact that he won the presidency over Trzaskowski. Like it's not that I think Trzaskowski was such a great candidate. I personally, I had questions about him. But Nawrocki is just like, he's got, like, what are his credentials to be the president of the country? There aren't any. Of course, you could say Zelensky didn't have any either, and that was goofy that he won the presidency, and he's done okay. But Nawrocki seemed to have beaten Trzaskowski because he's more masculine, and he sort of represents a kind of version of masculinity that a lot of people sort of feel comfortable or maybe safer with, and the like metrosexuality of Trzaskowski, his polyglotness. I don't know. I think like combined with his polyglotness, combined with his handsomeness, is a kind of threat to the like average Polish man. And he is well above average in terms of like handsomeness in Poland. If you're disagreeing with me right now and you're a dude, like, come on. I mean, he's better looking than me. Anyways, yeah. So those are some of my examples. I'd love to hear some of your others. Like other like kind of ridiculous things, like no matter what, the customer is always wrong. I come from a world where, if I have an issue with something, if something has happened, and customer service, sort of the unwritten rules of customer service is that the customer is always right, and you try and solve things in a way that customers feel taken care of, because that's good for business. Whereas I'm always treated badly, in terms of customer service. If I have an issue, if I ever have an issue with something, the conversation usually revolves around how the company is not at fault. Somehow I've done something wrong. Unless they've gone through some like customer service training. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of Polish satire. Let me know, what do you think about what I've said? Do you agree, disagree? Do you have any other examples of Polish satire? Love to hear it. Bye.